Hi boys and girls, it's Mrs. Francisco again. Welcome back to session 2 of Compassion Camp. We hope you have been having the best time exploring all these lessons with your families. Last week in session 1, we talked about, what is compassion? And we learned that compassion is when you see someone hurting and you feel that hurting too. And you do something with them to ease their hurting, which means you help them in some way. Now, we talked about feelings words, and the reason last week we talked about feelings is because in order to start having compassion, you have to be able to recognize what people are feeling. If they're feeling happy, maybe a little blue, a little sad, angry. It's important to be able to recognize how your friends and your family are feeling in order to be able to help them. Now this week in session 2, if you were able to join us for our Zoom meeting on Sunday, you might remember that we're going to talk about finding compassion with our neighbors. And that means the people that we live near, we might see them at the grocery store, we might go to school with them or go to church with them. They're all our neighbors. They are the people in our communities. Places where we live, where we work, and where we play. Okay? Now in our story today, I do have a job that I want you to do. Last week, I planted those feeling words so that as we were reading, you could see in the story who was feeling those feelings and what did they do about it? How did they find compassion? This week, I want you to be looking in the story for when you notice a character feeling brave. Well, just like compassion, when we talked about what compassion was, let's talk about what it means to be brave. A lot of times when I say the word brave, children might think, I know, you must be brave in order to be a firefighter because you have to be able to run into a burning building. That's true. You definitely have to be brave to be a firefighter. But that's not the only way to be brave. That's the really cool thing. Every person can be brave. You don't necessarily have to have a dangerous job in order to be brave. You can be brave by having compassion. Remember, compassion is when you see someone hurting and you feel that hurt, but you do something about it. And that's what we're going to talk about in our story today. The people having compassion in our story see their friend hurting and needing help, and they do risky things and they go out of their comfort zones to help their friend because they know this is what they need to do. Okay? So as we listen to the story today, just like last week, if you see or hear a character being brave, I want you to wiggle your fingers. That lets your brain know, hey, I've spotted it. Okay? And then we can talk about it back at the end. All right. Let's read this story. We are going to see if we can find a character who is being brave. The story today is, it is from Mark, chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. One day, Jesus visited someone's home. Now you got to know that during this time, Jesus was becoming a pretty famous guy. People knew about him. They started to love him and all the things that he was doing and saying and speaking about. Well, everyone heard he was there. They were so excited to see him because they had heard that he was healing people and helping people and helping people become part of their communities again, that everyone wanted to go. They wanted to see these miracles. Well, a friend who happened to be paralyzed, now that means that they don't have the use of their legs. So they can't stand up and walk. Okay? He had his friends take him to see Jesus. When his friends and him got there, it was really crowded. There was no way to get to Jesus through all those people. But his friends had an idea. They climbed up onto the roof of the house and they made a hole in the roof right above where Jesus was. Then they lowered their friend into the room, their friend that did not have the use of his legs. When Jesus saw their faith, he was encouraged. He wasn't angry. And he told their friend, I see you and I love you. You are made whole for your community. Your sins are forgiven. Some temple leaders called scribes were watching Jesus. When they heard him say this to the friend who was paralyzed, they were angry. They thought to themselves, who does he think he is, this Jesus? Only God can say those things. Jesus could tell that the scribes disagreed with him, so he said to them, I know what you're thinking right now, but what's easier? To say, I see you and love you, or get up and walk? I'll show you that it can be possible to do both. With compassion, Jesus turned to the friend who was paralyzed and said, get up, pick up your mat and go home. You are healed now. And he stood up, amazed. He picked up his mat and he went home with his friends. Everyone was so happy. They praised God because they had never seen anything like this before. Thus ends our reading for today, but I do want to talk about this just a little bit. See, those friends, they were brave. Those friends knew that their friend who did not have the use of his legs, he needed help. He needed to see Jesus. So they went out on a limb and they took a risk and they stood up for their friend that they knew needed help and they lowered him in through the roof. They did what they thought was right to help them. That's the kind of bravery we're talking about this week. But look, it doesn't mean you have to do something like that in order to be brave. You can be brave anytime you see someone hurting by standing up for them. Now, I teach 3rd grade, and in my grade, a lot of times, kids need to be brave around other kids. On the playground, in the lunchroom, maybe even in the classroom. They might see one of their friends getting picked on, or pushed around, or even excluded, which means they're not being played with like the other kids. And it can be scary to stick up for kids. It can be scary because you don't want to be picked on either. But know that God sees you and he loves you and he's giving you that power in your heart and that compassion to do what's right and to be brave in that moment. And one thing that you can do is that if you see someone being excluded or picked on, stand with them. It can be as simple as that, standing by their side and showing whoever is being unkind that that person's not alone. Maybe even use your voice and say, stop, no, this isn't right. You can speak up and you can stand up, and that is brave. All right, boys and girls, I can't wait for you to see all the rest of the things that we have in store for you this week, the different crafts and activities, and especially there's a video coming up that I think is going to get you all dancing. I know it made me dance. So have a great week and enjoy, everybody.